Hello, I'm the thinker. We live in an era that many describe as multipolar. The word is repeated in analysis, conferences, and debates. It's said that the world no longer revolves around a single center of power, that there are several powers, several visions of the international order, several models competing for influence. But before asking ourselves which model to choose, before taking a position, before even offering an opinion, there's something more important: learning to think correctly about multipolarity. Because without clear criteria, multipolarity can simply become a marketplace of narratives. And Stoicism isn't swayed by narratives, it's guided by principles. The first Stoic lesson in geopolitics is to distinguish between what depends on us and what doesn't. It doesn't depend on us whether the world is multipolar. It doesn't depend on us whether competing powers exist. It doesn't depend on us whether the strategies of major global players are determined. What does depend on us is how we interpret that scenario, what criteria we use to evaluate it, what standards we consider non-negotiable. Because in times of transition, the greatest danger is not the existence of multiple poles. The greatest danger is moral confusion. Multipolarity is neither good nor bad in itself. It is a structural condition of the international system. It can generate balance. It can generate healthy competition. It can open opportunities for regions that were previously subordinate to a single influence. But it can also generate ambiguity. It can dilute responsibilities. It can allow seductive rhetoric to obscure less visible realities. That is why the Stoic does not first ask who is stronger. He asks something deeper. What values does each model uphold? Not what values it proclaims, but what values it practices. Because there is an enormous difference between declarations and sustained behavior over time. When we analyze any power or bloc, we must ask simple yet demanding questions. Is there genuine freedom of expression? Does the justice system function independently? Is private property respected as the foundation of economic stability? Are contracts honored? Can the average citizen plan their life with any certainty? Does real wages allow for a decent life? Is there social mobility? These questions are not ideological, they are structural. They belong neither to the right nor the left. They belong to the very architecture of civilization. A political model can have different cultural nuances, different historical traditions, and different strategic priorities. But if it systematically fails to protect the basic dignity of the individual, then the power it wields loses moral legitimacy. Stoicism teaches us that virtue is the only true good. In geopolitical terms, virtue translates into coherence between discourse and practice. A nation can speak of social justice, but if its courts are not independent, there is an inconsistency. It can speak of freedom, but if criticism is penalized, there is an inconsistency. It can speak of prosperity, but if inflation erodes real income and the currency loses constant stability, there is an inconsistency. Stoic analysis is not impressed by the size of the gross domestic product or the magnitude of military power. It observes the daily life of the average citizen, because that is where the true strength of a system is measured. Multipolarity implies competition between models, and all competition implies comparison. A strong model is not afraid of being compared. It is not afraid of indicators. It is not afraid of statistics. It is not afraid of external observation. When a system is solid, transparency does not weaken it. It strengthens it. However, no country is perfect. No political system has achieved institutional perfection. Human history is a history of imperfection and correction. That is why the second Stoic criterion is the capacity for self-correction. A system can have serious flaws, but if it allows for the alternation of power, open criticism, institutional reforms, and constant review of errors, it possesses resilience. Resilience is more valuable than the appearance of stability. There are systems that seem very stable until they are not, and when they fail, they do so abruptly. In contrast, systems that allow for internal tension, debate, disagreement, and ongoing review tend to be more durable. Multipolarity demands that the Americas learn to evaluate this difference. It is not enough to observe short-term economic growth. It is not enough to observe state discipline. We must observe whether the system allows for correction without rupture, because the freedom to correct is a profound indicator of institutional maturity. Another essential element in this analysis is predictability. Without predictability, there is no investment. Without investment, there is no sustained employment. Without employment, there is no social stability. An environment where the rules constantly change according to the political climate generates structural insecurity, and structural insecurity slowly erodes the social fabric. The Stoic is not seduced by quick fixes. They prefer stable structures. Multipolarity also forces us to distinguish between declarative sovereignty and real sovereignty. A country can proclaim sovereignty with impassioned speeches, but if it is completely dependent on other actors technologically, energetically, or financially, its margin of autonomy is limited. Real sovereignty implies productive capacity, legal stability, solid education, and strategic diversification. It is not a slogan, it is a long-term endeavor. Here, a delicate but essential point arises. Multipolarity does not eliminate the need for universal values. On the contrary, it intensifies it. When there are multiple poles, the temptation to relativize principles increases. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that everything is equivalent, that all forms of organization are interchangeable. But not everything is equivalent. A system that allows open criticism is not equivalent to one that systematically restricts it. A system that protects contracts is not equivalent to one that subordinates them to discretionary decisions. A system where the press investigates freely is not equivalent to one where information is controlled. Stoicism is not relativism, it is ethical rationality. In a multipolar world, moral clarity becomes more necessary than ever, because an abundance of options can generate confusion, and confusion is fertile ground for impulsive decisions. The Americas, in particular, face a complex task. For decades, they have oscillated between various external influences and intense internal debates. Multipolarity opens opportunities for negotiation and diversification, but it also demands maturity. It's not about automatically aligning with whoever offers the most immediate investment, not even with those who promise strategic protection. It's about evaluating structural coherence. The Stoic analyzes with detachment. They are not swayed by cultural sympathies or historical antipathies. They evaluate facts. They observe long-term trajectories. They measure consistency. And above all, they remember something fundamental. Power is circumstantial. Human dignity is permanent. Any geopolitical project that does not have as its central focus the real and verifiable improvement of people's lives is doomed to generate internal tensions sooner or later. Authentic stability is not imposed solely from above. It is built when people perceive justice, opportunity, and predictability. Thinking about multipolarity stoically also implies accepting limits. We do not control the design of the global chessboard, but we can decide which standards we consider non-negotiable. Basic freedom, independent judiciary, respect for property, normative stability, opportunities for entrepreneurship, real wages that reflect productivity, education geared towards the technological future. These are criteria, not slogans, and without criteria, any choice is improvisation. America's 2026 is not just a year on the calendar, it is a symbol of transition, a moment in which the continent must decide how to position itself in the face of multiple influences. But before deciding on positions, it must decide how to think, because those who think without principles end up reacting, and those who react without principles end up constantly wavering. Multipolarity can be a historic opportunity for the continent. It can allow for greater room for negotiation. It can open spaces for autonomy. It can diversify alliances, but only if it is approached with moral clarity and strategic rationality. The Stoic does not fear complexity. They observe it, they analyze it, they order it, and then act prudently. In times of global competition, serenity is a strategic advantage. Intellectual discipline is a strategic advantage. Institutional coherence is a strategic advantage. The future will not belong to the loudest pole, nor to the most bombastic. It will belong to the most consistent, to the one that demonstrates, with sustained actions over time, that its model improves the lives of its people without sacrificing freedom or justice. And the Americas, if they wish to choose wisely, must begin with this fundamental task, learning to think about multipolarity with clear criteria, without fanaticism, without naivete, without resentment, with serenity, with responsibility, with firm standards. Because in a world of multiple poles, the inner compass is worth more than external pressure. I am the thinker, and I invite you to reflect before you choose. Because true strength isn't about conforming, it's about discerning. If this analysis brought you clarity, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective also enriches this space. And if you value this kind of calm and structured thinking, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. In the next video, we will apply these criteria to the concrete reality of the Americas. We will continue thinking, we will continue analyzing, we will continue discerning. Thank you for joining me. I am Carlos Alberto, the thinker. Until the next reflection, friends.